Hey everyone, welcome to So What Do You Do Now? We're here with our guest David. David, welcome to the show. Thanks for taking the time to be with us.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
The whole show, the idea is that we're providing a resource to people that have come across certain challenges in life. And we're here today to talk about you and your son and how he came into the world. Can you tell me a little bit about your son?
Sure. Ethan was born on December 6, 2001. He's 16 now, and great kid, great heart. You know, he's spirited for sure. And I guess we should probably tell the listeners that you were his camp counselor, so you know a little bit about Ethan.
I'm well aware of Ethan. He's full of personality, and he's funny. He is opinionated.
Guilty. Guilty by association.
Doesn't fall far from the tree,
No,
right?
not at all.
I'll tell you the one thing I learned about him. If I wanted to go, hey, Ethan, we need to go eat lunch, he'd be like, no, not going. I'm like, you know what, Ethan, I'm going to go get lunch. You stay here. I'm going to go get lunch by myself, okay? And he'd be like, whoa, hold on. No, I'm coming with you. So it was that reverse psychology that worked out.
Interesting.
That worked out great. But much like yourself, I have a son, Charlie, who's 8, who has Down syndrome. So I've gotten into the Down syndrome community. So the idea is that someone out there who's listening has found out potentially they're having a child with Down syndrome, or they've had a child with Down syndrome, and they're just looking for other perspectives. So
yeah, I guess just to kind of give this some structure to help myself kind of tell the story would be to start with Ethan's birth. And we did not know ahead of time. And
so leading up to that, your whole time, you're thinking, oh, I'm going to have a...
Well, we knew we were going to have a boy. We knew we were going to have a boy because we did the ultrasound. His mother was like, oh, I don't know if we want to know the sex. And I said, well, I do, because I want to have the room prepared. I don't want it to be pink or blue or whatever theme we're going to go with. But it's a little easier when you come home right after a birth, a little less stressful if you're somewhat prepared, other than just a crib.
Sure.
So I wanted to find out, and she said, well, okay. And so we found out it was a boy. And, it was questions because of her age. She was in her late 30s about whether or not we wanted to do
they stick the needle in the belly. Yeah.
But
amniocentesis.
Yeah. And there's some chances that might, I guess, damage the pregnancy or something.
Yeah,
from
potential complications.
Yeah. So we were like, no, we know it's a boy. That's good enough for us, So we planned as best we could. We went and did pregnancy classes and everything, and got to know some other couples during that process. And he, was delivered, and the doctor, his pediatrician, he came in, and he was the worst guy to have as a pediatrician. Because he came in and he stood there, and his delivery of just saying, hey, congratulations, you've got a boy, you brought a child into the world. He just stood there and he couldn't even get the words out. She's laying in a bed because she just delivered a baby. And I'm just kind of like, well, what is he trying to communicate? What is this? And he finally said it, and we didn't even know what it meant.
What did he say? I mean,
he said, yeah, well, Ethan has Down syndrome. And we didn't even know. It was like, well, what does that even mean? We knew a little bit about Down syndrome, and I mean, by a little bit, I mean very little. We used to watch that show, the TV show called Life Goes On.
Oh, yeah, Corky.
Because it had the Obla Di, Obla Da Beatles tune for yes, Corky. And he married, I guess his character even married another child with Down syndrome in the show. We watched it, and it was the strangest thing that we actually liked that show. And so that was our association with what Down syndrome was. That was it. We didn't really have we didn't know anybody in our, personal lives, any adults that had Down syndrome or any other couples that had children with Down syndrome. So we didn't really have a very strong reference point other than that television show.
So right at that moment, I mean, I've got to ask, so what do you do now?
Well, I can tell you what. The first thing I did is I got a different pediatrician. That was the first thing I did. Our pediatrician's backup came in Saturday morning, and he picked Ethan up, held him, kissed on him, held him up, smiled, gave him a big hug. And I said, that's our guy. That's our guy. He's his doctor to this day.
Really?
Yes. Dr. Glass. Yeah.
And what was it? It was just a person.
It was just, if Dr. Glass had already been our pediatrician the day before, how he would have delivered the news, there's no way of knowing.
Yeah.
But the guy that we had chosen, who we'd already gone and seen several times, his personality just was not, that just wasn't, I thought, well, okay, he's a doctor, he knows what he's doing, okay. But when he came in and delivered that news, and then the following morning, this other guy comes in who is holding my child up like this is my child, and he's treating my child really special. Not because it's a special needs child, but he's treating it like the miracle of birth. And I was like, that's the guy I want caring for my child. And he's been Ethan's doctor ever since. So that's awesome. I mean, I've always felt really good about him. I like the way that he talks to Ethan. I like how he still talks to Ethan. He's, very...
Well, explain that to me. What do you mean by it? Is he just treats Ethan?
Well, he's known him all his life. That's one great thing about it.
Well, from day 2, really.
Yeah, from day 2. That's pretty close. I'll give him a day. He's all you can ask for in a doctor. When you go see a doctor, even if it's just a standard checkup, when you go see a doctor, nobody wants to be in a doctor's office. If they make it seem like it's less arduous, or it's just part of, you have to do this, here you are, but don't worry about anything because I've got it.
Do you know if the doctor had any other kids with Down syndrome?
I don't know that.
Yeah,
I don't
doesn't
know
matter.
That. It just struck me that this guy was made to be a pediatrician. Like, he gets kids. Like, he just walked in the room and picked up the kid, picked Ethan up and kissed him and held him up. Like, this will be hard, but I want to share it. Ethan did have respiratory issues. Now, he was born on December 6th, and by New Year's Eve, he was in the hospital. And he was having some sort of congenitive issue. And that first trip to the hospital was not something I wish on anyone, where every 15 minutes, because the machine would go off every 15 minutes, there's a constant beep, beep, beep. Every 15 minutes it would go off. And the reason it went off is because they had to have someone come in and take a tube and shove it down into Ethan's chest and suck all the stuff off.
Oh, he was getting fluid in his chest?
Yeah. It's some sort of congestive respiratory thing.
So what happened to where you guys are like, we should take him to the hospital? Where was the...
Well, he was having trouble breathing. I don't even quite remember what.
But a month old
in the hospital, New Year's Eve, every 15 minutes, where they were coming in and shoving a tube down his chest and sucking stuff out so he could live. I just remember not understanding. I just remember feeling really powerless. Like, all I'm doing is sitting here. I can't do anything. What am I going to do?
I understand.
And so it was another the first 4 years of his life, there was periodic, not quite as dramatic or traumatic on him as that first visit, but not getting enough oxygen, visits to the hospital. I will tell you that I became hypersensitive to anything where I felt that I was observing him not breathing well. If I felt like he was struggling, because you would see his chest would be working harder. And so I just I was just constantly in fear of something happening.
So is it any little call for sneeze or...
No, not a call for sneeze. The amount of...
labored breathing.
Right. Labored breathing, and how his chest would move. And so if he wasn't functioning, just normal breathing, and it just appeared like his chest was slower than normal or anything, I was just on, we got to do something.
So Ethan's getting older, and he's starting to crawl. Tell me about that transition, learning to crawl, learning to walk. Were there challenges there? Or?
Yeah, I think for most parents with kids with Down syndrome, again, it'll be different for everyone, but it takes them the balance, the muscle tone. They have lower muscle tone in general, and it does take them a little bit, that progress again. I'll just say the word again, patience. You, especially if you have other kids, or if you have friends who have kids and you want them to play together or whatever it is, and you're trying to get them to that level to be able to function and be around other children, and you just can't rush it along. It's, you just have to work with them. It's Ethan, I think, I don't remember what age he was before he walked, but it was longer.
Yeah.
Even getting him to crawl. I remember when he would be on the floor, he would just be kind of on his belly. And we had to kind of initiate having him up on his knees and his hands and kind of help him learn that aspect of moving.
Army crawl, sort of.
Yeah, he did the army crawl way before he actually did the up on all fours.
Yeah.
Where he was going by his hands. So the army crawl is what he did first. And he did it for a while. Again, you ask the doctors, I go, well, here are the statistics and stuff, and it doesn't matter.
Well, and I think kids with special needs that have circumstances that are outside of the norm of what people can expect. But for you, it was the norm. You didn't have any other kids.
I don't have any other
kids,
right? And with the exception of going to buddy walks, when you go to the buddy walks, you see complete variation. I mean, it's everything. I mean, it broke my heart. I'd go to a buddy walk, and there'd be someone's daughter or their son, and they would be it was much more severe.
Right.
It was all they could do to just sit in a little push thing.
Yeah.
And I just thought, I don't have it so bad. One of the things that we just do as a society, we're always comparing. We just do it by nature. And so that's one of the things I was doing. I was like, well, I don't have it so bad. And I cannot imagine what they go through, what they have to deal with. But the respiratory things for him, when we were told that he may end up having asthma one day, and to this, he's 16 now and he does not have asthma, but I'm still not certain that still can't happen. It could still show up.
Does he have bad allergies when it comes to when the seasons come around? He doesn't clog up?
But usually every time February-ish, something happens where he's got and when you go to school,
it's a cesspool of it's a petri dish of everything.
Yeah. So Down syndrome is really a strange thing to me.
How so? What do you mean?
Well, I watched because I had a child with Down syndrome, I ended up being there was a HBO special about a boy named Peter. It's all about this boy from kindergarten all the way through high school. His Down syndrome made him aggressive. Made him stubborn. He never, always, grunting.
Yeah. Nonverbal. Would he speak at all?
If he wanted to, if he applied himself. But he just was more, there was more of this aggressive nature. There was more of this, and it's not because of where he is bringing up or anything like that. He seemed to come from a normal home. The home was included in the documentary. So, I just watched this and I thought, and then they tried to include him in classes and regular classes when he was younger, and it just never took because he would not, he would take things from people or he'd push them over.
Sure.
Or, so when I saw that, I thought, man, I hope that's not what he ends up, where he ends up, that this other side comes out, because for the most part, he's just a really bubbly, outgoing guy. But there have been times when one time I randomly showed up at his elementary school. One day I walked in and he was with his speech teacher in the hallway, and he had decided, he shut down on her. And I observed her trying to pick him up by one arm, and he was just sitting there like a lump on the ground. There's two things about that really bothered me. One, I don't want anyone picking up my son by one arm. I don't care what the circumstances are. And two, that I didn't see that side of him. So I realized there was this other dynamic at play. So then I had to understand why that was happening. And for the most part, what I've gleaned from that was that when Ethan gets tired, and it's not so much anymore, but it still does show itself in ways. And it's the thing with kids with Down syndrome. So when he got tired when he was younger, he would just shut down and he'd be kind of a lump.
Nonviolent protest.
Exactly.
Just sit in, sort of. They're not moving. You're not taking me anywhere. I'm not going to listen to you. I'm just going to shut down and lay right here.
Yeah, and I think it was due to fatigue. With a child with Down syndrome, the hormones or anything else associated with age aren't taking a time out. They're right there. So he's 16, and as far as his hormones go, he is every bit of 16. And his body is just 16. And I can remember vaguely remember when I was 16, or just a teenager in general. None of us know what we're doing when we're teenagers.
But you think you do. And your parents don't have a clue at that point because you know everything because you're a teenager.
Well, when you're 16, that's fair. But earlier teens anyway. So that's kind of the hard thing to make the connect with. Now you go to these IEP meetings, you meet with the teachers.
Are the IEP meetings the individual education plan for someone who may not know what that is?
Thank you. And he's had really good teachers. I really feel blessed in terms of the school system here giving him teachers that care. He's been very blessed in that regard. 95% of his teachers, elementary, middle school, and now in high school, are people that really genuinely care. It doesn't seem to me that the teachers in the roles of special needs classrooms are there by accident.
Right.
They're there because that's what they sought out. It's not like, oh, this classroom's full up, so we're going to put you over here. That's not been my experience at all.
It's the people that someone in their life has touched them to a point where this is they've made it a goal for themselves.
They're
to help
driven. Yes.
Yeah. We found the same thing, is that you don't just fall into special needs. You do it because you want to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we see it with Charlie and the teachers in the school system. In the school that he's in now, we had an IEP and we were pushing for inclusion. We wanted to stay in a regular classroom, and the local school system's like, look, here's what we got. We got a program at this school. You're welcome to come to that. And my wife and I are both a little bit stubborn. We're like, no, inclusion works. Put them in the school. And ultimately we were like, let's just try it. And we tried it, and we kick ourselves in the butt because we were like, why didn't we do this sooner? Mm-hmm. Instead of a regular classroom where they push into it, it's a special classroom. They pull them out to a general ed classroom. So it's kind of the opposite of what we wanted, but it's what the school system has. So we tried it, and it's worked. Charlie loves school again because he was doing some of the acting out and fighting, the dropping down into the floor, nonviolent protest. I'm tired, hitting other kids at school, hitting the teachers, that sort of stuff. And he's 7. He's 8 now. He turned 8 last week. But you hit the nail on the head. No one goes to be a special needs teacher. They don't just fall into that.
No.
You don't pick that as your major.
They choose
It's not like a communications major.
Yeah.
Where you just art history or something.
Which art class can I go in? It's not like that at all. This is where I want to be. This is what I want to be doing. These are the kids that I want to work with. I want to make a difference. And that part of it has been really great.
And IEPs have been pretty good. I mean, you've had
Yeah, but now here's the thing, though, and this is going to vary for every kid, just as it does in general. For every child. Every person is different. So the thing with the IEPs they're just goal-driven meetings. What do you want for your child? Here's where we are with what we found with his academics. So Ethan right now, he's 16 years old. And again, his body is 16 years old, but he is at a 3rd grade reading and writing level. And so then the disconnect becomes, well, how do we figure out where he is mentally? We know his body is this. We're being told by the school system he's academically here. Where is his mind there? Is his mind over closer to 16? Is it somewhere around 12? Is it 3rd grade? I ask those questions of myself, but it's just kind of like you just take it as it comes because there's not like a map to this. You just have to kind of bring that out of them. If you have an idea of I'll give you an example. So I wanted for a couple of years now, Ethan to really understand time and money because he has gotten better with concepts, but he struggles with concepts. Okay. So if you asked if he looks at a clock, if in his bedroom, he's got an old fashioned clock on his wall with the hands. And then he's also got a digital clock next to his bed. And then because most homes anymore, everything's just digital.
Yeah.
So he can see numbers just like anyone else can. And he can look at a clock and tell you what time it is. But then if you ask him, so how much time is left before it becomes, let's say it's 6:58, how many more minutes until 7 o'clock? He's not sure. Or if I say how many minutes in an hour, he'll say 60, but at the same time, his mind, when you talk about money, it's always like 100 pennies. So the 100 is 1 hour. That's the difference. That's the concept that I'm trying to help him understand. 60 seconds, 60 minutes, 24 hours, 48 hours, what equals a week, all those things. Because he wants, he's got a wallet, right? And he's got money in that wallet. And he wants to go and buy things. And he's such a sweet guy that we'll be out at dinner and he wants to bring his wallet so he can pay for dinner.
I'll have to go to dinner with him. I'll have the surf and turf, yes. Ethan. I'll have the...
Well, he loves Outback, so he'll take you to Outback.
Oh, perfect. So, another bloomin' onion.
Yeah. That cognitive level of thinking, whereas, you were talking about your experience with him, where, yeah, he knows what he wants most of the time. So he is an independent thinker, which I love. It's just getting him to understand concepts. So, now he'll go to a restaurant and he'll say, I got this. But there was a period of time there, like if we go out, like for his birthday, if all the parents get together, the mom and the stepdad and the dad and the stepmom, and we all go out with him, there's some weird dynamic that happens where he wants them to order for him. But if he goes out with us, he's like, I got this. So it's and maybe it's the difference between mom and dad. Well, sure. I'll let mom take care of me.
Sure.
And sure. I'm going to impress Dad.
Well, I think he nailed it. I think he wants the independence, and he wants to be able to say, "Here, let me impress Dad. Let me show you what I can do." I mean, he definitely wants to impress. I mean, at least the limited time that I spent with him at camp, he was all about impressing me.
Yeah.
And the Tooth Fairy came while we were there.
Yes.
And Nurse Angela came up, and she was like, "Oh, Ethan lost a tooth. We're going to do the Tooth Fairy thing." She put it in a surgical glove, and we stuck it under his pillow, and he woke up. It was a whole big thing, and I videotaped the whole thing.
It's in that thing.
Yeah. Ethan seems like the average kid with Down syndrome. Is that fair, or is that? And I'm not saying that in a way.
Well, I don't know if I'm qualified to answer that. It's hard for me to qualify. Is he average? Again, when I go to Buddy Walks and I see the variance of levels of Or there's the take on sports. He plays basketball, soccer, football, and he's been playing, for the most part, it's the same kids who keep coming back. And with the take on sports, it's not just Down syndrome. It's different things. And some you can look at, right? Like with Down syndrome, you can look at a child and most of the time you can tell it's Down syndrome.
That kid has Down syndrome.
And so I don't know what the special needs associated with some of the other kids are.
It's like some kids are on the spectrum with autism.
Yeah.
Or some kids are...
I don't know all the different things, but it's great to watch, and he loves doing it. They're always assigned buddies, regardless of what sport. Now, the hard thing, though, is when you have a functioning child who understands some concept. Now, like he watches football with me, so he understands some of the rules of football. So he goes to play this take on sports football, and he hustles, and he's running along, and he does what he's supposed to do, and then he'll look over at me because they let the kid run into the end zone because they want everyone to score. They want everyone to be happy and enjoy that excitement of getting a touchdown. So he'll look at me like, what gives? But I think over the years, he's kind of figured that out. And that's hard for me a little bit because there's the debate every day about should every kid get a trophy. And I'm not going to get into that because I only have one child, and that one child always does get a trophy. And it's a special needs thing, so that I don't really have a foot on that side of the line to even have a conversation about that. Now, the only thing I think that the wish were different was I wish that Ethan had siblings.
Yeah.
That's hard for me not to always want. So, but the one of the questions, and I would encourage anyone who has a child with Down syndrome, siblings or not, that, because it dawned on me just in the last week that one of the things that I don't have for Ethan kind of set up, and I think it's important that it is, because one of the things that you're faced with when you have a child with special needs, whether the child is a lone child or has siblings, is one of the things that goes through your mind is, who is going to end up with my child?
Yeah.
Because regardless of the age, no matter how far off in the distance you think about it or how long you spend thinking about it, inevitably your child is either going to end up in a kind of an inclusive community with other special needs kids, or with a sibling or another relative. That's a heavy subject. You really have to think about that. It's just like planning with finances, right? Open a trust fund for that child immediately.
A special needs trust.
Yes.
And it's working with an attorney that specializes in it to set it up.
That's very important.
So a special needs trust is something that's essential for a child.
Absolutely. And that's one of the first things you have to do. Once your child, if you have a child born with special needs.
So you get a hold of an attorney that specializes in trust, and obviously your local Down syndrome community would probably have some attorney that
they would have that information, and you just go to like you would set up any trust. You just get the lawyer, you sit down with them, you draw them up, you give your social security number of your child to that. You just set it all up, and you got to do it though, because you want your child protected. And that's step one. And then the other part of it is this long-range planning. I have a small family, very small family. I've got two brothers. My younger brother does not have any kids. My older brother has one son, but he doesn't have any kids. Now, on his mother's side, she's got a big family. And Ethan's godfather is actually her brother. He's older than I am, so you never know when someone's time is. Usually it's old age, but you never know.
Right.
And it just occurred to me, I don't have an understanding of who is going to come and get Ethan. If he's not living with somebody, who is going to come and get Ethan and bring him to Thanksgiving? Who is he going to be with for Thanksgiving or Christmas or Easter?
Yeah.
Who is going to be the one spending that time with him? And, with Charlie, you've got two siblings, right?
Yeah.
But still, you have to process, these siblings are going to go to college, and then what? You can't see that. There's no crystal ball. But with Ethan being 16, I'm at a point where we have to have a plan. We have to have an understanding. And then you have to go to that relative. And it's not necessarily a godparent. You just have to say, is this something that you're comfortable with, where you are including my son in your life?
Yeah.
On this level? Because that's peace of mind. If I die tomorrow and I don't have that answer, that's an issue for me. That's me taking something with me that is no good.
So you've already got the special needs trust all done, and you did that all along?
Yeah, I did that. We did that right away. If you know ahead of time, learn sign language. If you don't know until the day they're born, learn sign language. If you're having a baby and you don't have a child with special needs, learn sign language. Nonverbal communication with a child through sign language is a marvel all by itself. And it doesn't matter if your child has special needs or not.
Yeah.
You'll be talking, I mean, what is it, Meet the Fockers, where the baby is making all the signs? And I'm like, exactly. When I watched that movie, I was like, that's exactly, I mean, half those signs. No, they went a little further with some of their jokes, but
Sure.
I was like, well, yeah, I know that. To this day, if Ethan's kind of like, I'm saying, come, time to go. As soon as I go, the sign for shoes, he stops what he's doing, he puts his shoes on.
We got into it early. We learned sign language. We don't really do it so much anymore, but to your point, you don't need to at some point.
And it's not, and don't think, if you're hearing this, don't think it's just some really hard thing to do. It's not. The alphabet is 26 letters. If you learn 26 different signs of sign language, you'll be good to go. I mean, that's enough. That's eat, stop,
please,
shoes, please, love,
poop.
Yeah, poop,
helicopter, giraffe.
Yeah, I mean,
whatever. It starts them in early. Charlie was talking to us with sign language long before he was verbal.
There's going to be a time in your life as a parent with a child with special needs, if they have cognizant skills on any level, where something is going to register with them that they're different. Ugh. And it's either through kids who aren't so nice, or if they're fortunate enough that they're not exposed too heavily to that, it'll be because they're like at a sporting event and they're doing what they ought to be doing, and they look over at you like, what the heck? Because they're letting them run in anyway. And you just do the best you can to make them feel like they're the person they are. That's the part of it that's no different. When you encounter those things, you just keep treating them like them.
Right.
We're all imperfect. So, and I believe this to this day, and you've got 3 kids. I believe that any birth is a miracle. Doesn't matter what it comes with, what is attached to it. We're all, I have epilepsy. Every person we're all here for a reason, and we all just do the best we can. And I've told Ethan that over and over and over. I just said, just do the best you can, right? Because, he will.
Solid advice for anyone.
And this is the other part of it. So if you end up in a divorce and you have a child with special needs, this is something I can speak to. He comes over a lot and he will say to me, and this is to this day, he will say, and you love me? And he's asking, and he'll say, and stepmom loves me? And he'll go through all the names of the family on either side. And he'll even ask about the pets. Okay? And he is looking for reassurance. And I think it comes from, and
is this recent, or is this like
it's all the time? Yeah. It's
teenage years? I mean, is it
now? Yeah.
So he's going through the teens and.
Well, it's that plus, and I can't speak from, my adoptive parents have been together. They're coming up on their 60th wedding anniversary. I don't have the example of divided home.
Sure.
I have, except my own, from my divorce.
Right.
And in my second marriage. I do have anxiety over separation because I'm adopted. And that's something that I deal with all the time. And I'm aware of it. So I guess it's half the battle. So when Ethan is asking me about, do you love me? Like, you're my dad and do you love me? That's how he says it. I said, of course, you're my best man. Don't you remember? You were my best man at my wedding. And he goes, oh, that's right. Yeah. And you're my best man.
Does he want to get married?
Oh my God. He's had his eye. He has had his eye on one girl since they were in their first kindergarten class together. I mean, it's all the time. And every time he brings it up, I just reiterate with him, first thing you have to do is find out if the girl is interested.
Is she?
I'm not sure because it's varying. I've seen them together. They seem to get along. Hers is a little bit more severe. So,
does she have Down syndrome?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah.
No, he's in love with a little girl that's got Down syndrome?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well, hopefully. It's just like any boy and girl thing. I keep telling him, I say, what you have to do is you have to express that you like her and ask her on a date. And a date could be going to the movies, but you have to understand that if you went to a movies, that it would be either her mom or dad, or me or your mom, or an adult. You'd go with an adult. He doesn't like that. He doesn't.
It's not a date.
Well,
it's supervised. No, he needs to go somewhere. Go to the movies by himself. Sit in the back row.
That's doable, and that's the other thing you brought up. That's another thing is there's a certain, when you have a kid, you have to keep your eye on them all the time. Well, and this is, I think, inherently true as a parent. You don't ever stop worrying when you have a child.
Oh my God, I remember telling my mom, just don't worry about me.
You have your kid of your own. It's like, oh, I get it now.
The thing I learned when I had kids was how much of a pain I was to my mom and dad. The things that you've learned and you're like, I want to share them with my kid. I want him to learn. I want to go ahead and give him the secret of the things that are, here, let me show you the way. And they got to learn it themselves.
It's hard for me to say this for certain, but I think where he's constantly looking for reinforcement with love is because he doesn't understand what happened.
How old was
with the divorce. He was 4.5 going on 5. And we had gone out to dinner, and she knew she was going to tell me, but we got back to the house. He would not go to sleep. He knew something was up. He would not go to sleep. And so he would not go to sleep. He actually ended up sitting on the couch while it happened. And so that part of me being a father feels as though I failed him.
Oh, I can imagine.
So when when he's looking for this reinforcement, I'm just happy to oblige.
You're a good dad. I see it. I just, and it's like, I don't know you really well, but I've seen you with him, and I see what you do, and I know you do such a good job at giving him the things that kids want. It's like just taking him,
That I do.
You do.
I do. I go a little overboard.
You go, that's okay. That's what you do. He's your only kid. And you're pouring into it, and you're giving him the things. So he's a lucky kid. You're a lucky guy too to have him.
Amen. Yeah. Now the other thing that's difficult, if you end up being a divorced dad who has a child with Down syndrome, and you don't have the full visitation, it's even harder because you are not seeing your child. It's hard enough to watch a child grow. It's like Christmas time comes, right, and you get gifts for your child, and then they go somewhere else, and they don't really get to enjoy the gifts except sporadically whenever they're here.
Sure.
But the harder part of that is just you don't get to really watch your child grow up before your eyes. It's sporadic, and it makes it harder.
Yeah.
But having him be my best man was completely, we were dressed exactly the same. He was all about it. So that was cool. And that's the other thing, and I would recommend this in any divorce, but especially with a child with special needs. To his mother's and my credit, we knew immediately it wasn't working for us, but no matter what happened, he had to be cared for. He had to be the focus.
What sort of advice would you give yourself if you could go back in time and talk to yourself when Ethan was born?
Trust your intuition. Get the trust, special needs trust. Don't freak out.
Don't freak out. It's a good one.
No one. That's the thing. They can tell you your child is Down syndrome, but there's no way are they going to tell you 5 years from now your child's going to be like this, or this. They're not going to be able to tell you what your child's character is going to be. They're not going to be able to tell you anything. Because this is the thing. One of the things that starts to go through your mind the second you learn, because they're going to come in, they're going to start telling you statistics, whether you like it or not.
Right.
They're going to give you statistics. When you go see the doctor to find out the chromosome count, they're going to start giving you statistics. And every time you do anything that you're supposed to do to take care of your child, special needs or not, you're going to hear statistics constantly. Don't worry about statistics. Just worry about your kid. And the patience thing, I have to say, that is really paramount. It's paramount if you have a child with special needs because, there's a gamut of things here. One, again, this is why it's so important to learn sign language. You can communicate with your child right out of the gate so that you're having that visual communication. It's going to make you closer to your child as they do learn to speak. And that's the other thing. You don't know when that speech is going to kind of finally come together. Ethan still struggles with speech, and he'll say short 2 to 3, maybe 4 word things like, I'm going to get something to eat. It's not, I'm going to go get something to drink. It's drink, I'll
tell you, with him at camp, sometimes he'd rattle off like an auctioneer. He would go and he would be telling me something, and I'd be like, dude, you gotta slow down and give me bits and pieces.
That's the other thing is these are very important things. One is being patient 1,000-fold.
Yes,
1,000-fold.
absolutely.
You have to understand that a child with Down syndrome, if they're trying to get out a sentence, every word of the sentence, they are working in a way that we cannot comprehend.
Right.
They are putting together something in a way that our minds we don't have to work that way.
Right.
Naturally, you think, okay, automatically it's your child, you're going to have compassion for them. But you have to be patient in ways that you will be tested, that you're not going to read anywhere.
Right.
It's not a statistic. It's up to you. You have to have the wherewithal to be aware that where it might take you or any other person 10 seconds to say what's on your mind, it's going to take that child, or even as they get into their teens, because again, there's no statistic that's going to tell you how your child is going to end up.
Right.
It could still take them 2 minutes or longer to get out what it is they're trying to express. Ethan still says, he's 16, and he still says, I don't know. So, well, let's back up and take a look at, and it's like, I'll say, why were you disrespectful? I don't know. And I'll tell him that's not good enough, because he's 16 now. I'm trying to help him understand how bad behavior, and again, concept, how
consequences.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's a concept. So it's so key. You have to understand with kids who have more severe Down syndrome, it's a whole different set of,
it's different challenges.
Yeah, different challenges, the way nothing is going to equip you properly if you have a child with special needs. It's just like having a regular child. I mean, I've only got Ethan, but I know it's just, you just do the best you can, find out everything you think you need to know, based on information the doctors are giving you, and providing him with the best care, just as you would any child.
I think the key here, what you're hitting on, and you've hit on it before, is that it's up to the individual kid.
Yeah, you'll get information, and just use the information the best you can. And that's the other thing is, in my story, in my case, don't be afraid to change doctors. I mean, if you have a pediatrician for your child, and then your child comes along and you have Down syndrome, if you feel like, well, you know what, I like the doctor, I like the pediatrician, but maybe I should find someone who has experience with special needs kids. I mean, I would almost suggest that, because I think it would lend itself to a greater feeling of being comfortable with the feedback you get from that doctor.
A greater sampling of children that they've dealt with, and they've seen more of the things that you will probably come across. I mean, I think that's fair to look for a doctor who's, with our pediatrician, he had some other kids and patients with Down syndrome. And that was part of when we were looking. That was somebody else has sort of blazed the path and utilized that information to help us out. And vice versa, what we're doing here now to try to help somebody else who's out there that maybe one day will hopefully listen to this and learn something from it.
Yeah. I think it's the understanding is you are inherently going to love your child the moment they come into the world, and your universe will change, and just do what comes naturally, and just love the dickens out of them, and it'll all work out.
I couldn't have said it any better. David, thank you for taking the time and telling us your story. I look forward to many years of knowing you and Ethan. And if anyone out there is going through a similar situation, I hope this helped. There's your local Down Syndrome Association in the area that you're located in. You should be able to find some resources locally. You can reach out to us. SoWhatDoYouDoNow.com. And So What Do You Do Now? That's it. Thanks again for listening.